Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight you're stepping into the heart of the Industrial Revolution, the crowded, soot-filled streets where the cotton mills rise like iron giants, their chimneys sending smoke curling into the sky. You're not a manager or a factory owner, just an ordinary worker drifting through a day measured in lint, pulleys, and the hum of relentless machinery. Before we start, do me one small favour. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. If you prefer these stories without ads, you can join the Patreon. It's linked in the description. And if you want the ultimate immersive experience, consider using a pair of wireless earbuds. They're comfortable, discreet, and designed so you can wear them even while sleeping. I've linked my favourite pair plus other sleep tools in the description. Now, lie back, get comfortable. Let's begin. You wake before dawn to the drone of the factory bell. It hums through the thin walls, like a sermon everyone already knows by heart. Long, low, and without surprise. For a moment, you lie still, watching the faint tremor of light, where the candle stub breathes its final smoke. The air is cool and damp, heavy with the scent of rain that hasn't yet fallen. You can hear the whisper of water beneath the floorboards, the slow cough of the city's veins. The bed creaks when you rise. The blanket clings to you with the faint stick of sweat and lint, as if the mill's dust has followed you even here. The window pane wears a thin film of grime. When you wipe it with your sleeve, it leaves a smear instead of a view. Outside, the world is half lit, half alive, the cobblestones still holding the night's chill. The street lamps burning out like tired eyes. You dress in silence. The shirt smells faintly of soap, though the scent has long surrendered to smoke. The fabric is rough where it meets your wrists, worn from washing, stiff from drying too close to the fire. You tug at the buttons by memory, not thought, and pull your boots on by habit rather than will. It's strange how the body learns before the mind does, how it wakes itself, even when the rest of you would rather stay still. Somewhere down the lane, another bell answers, another door opens, another worker steps into the same morning. You could almost believe it's all one long corridor. Your life, their lives, all spilling into each other, indistinguishable but for the sound of different footsteps. You strike a match. The flame flares and then softens, revealing the basin in the corner. The water inside is cold, its surface trembling slightly, as if even it dreads the day ahead. You splash your face, the chill crawling down your neck like a reminder that you're still made of flesh, not machine. The mirror beside it reflects a pale blur, eyes red-rimmed from dust, lips cracked from the dry air, hair that refuses to lie flat no matter how you smooth it down. The candle guttered out when you weren't looking. You leave it as it is. You take your shawl, wrap it around your shoulders, and open the door. The hinges sigh. The street greets you with the faint hiss of early fog. It moves low to the ground, a ghostly tide that blurs edges and softens sound. The mills loom at the far end of the road, vast silhouettes of brick and smoke rising against the grey horizon. You can already see the faint orange glow of the furnaces through the narrow windows, like embers inside a beast that never truly sleeps. You walk. Your boots tap against stone, each sound swallowed by the mist. The houses you pass are all the same, cramped, damp, and leaning inwards, as if conspiring in their decay. Laundry lines sway overhead, their rags frozen stiff in the cold. A cat watches you from a windowsill, its fur dusted with soot. You nod to it, an instinct perhaps, and it blinks back, unimpressed. As you near the corner, you catch the scent of baking bread from a shop that's not yet open. It smells faintly sweet, though the sweetness feels like a rumour, something meant for someone else. A group of men walk ahead, heads down, caps low. None of you speak. Conversation feels too extravagant for this hour, too delicate for the work that waits. The factory's bell calls again, louder now, closer, and it feels like the sound has a weight of its own. It presses against your chest, a steady vibration that quickens your pace. You can almost taste the iron in the air. The gatekeeper is already there, standing like a post beside the door. He nods without looking at you, his face lit by the orange glow spilling from inside. His hands are black with soot, his collar frayed from years of identical mornings. He holds a ledger, though no one ever seems to read it. You step past him and into the warm, damp breath of the mill. The change in air is instant, heavier, denser, alive with motion. The sound hits you first, the rhythmic thrum of machines waking, belts tightening, gears aligning. It's a sound that never really stops. It only grows louder or quieter, depending on where you stand. The smell follows, a blend of oil, wool, and old sweat that coats your tongue, until even breathing feels like work. Light filters through tall, dirty windows, catching the dust that floats in slow suspension. You can see it swirling above the rows of looms, glittering faintly like imitation snow. The overseer stands on the platform at the far end, checking his watch. He never raises his voice. He doesn't need to. The bell speaks for him. The machines enforce him. The silence of the workers sustains him. You take your place at your station. The stool is hard, the bench colder still. You run your hands over the frame, feeling for splinters that weren't there yesterday. The machine hums in recognition, as if welcoming you back to its quiet, endless conversation. You thread the bobbin, fingers moving with practiced precision. You do not think, you remember. There's comfort in the repetition, a dull, mechanical piece that requires nothing but endurance. The first hour passes almost unnoticed. The second stretches. The third folds into the first. There's no clock nearby, only the slow ache in your shoulders and the faint tightening in your lungs. Someone coughs a few rows away, a sharp wet sound swallowed quickly by the clatter of gears. You don't look up. No one does. Sometimes when the machines fall into perfect rhythm, you imagine the whole room breathing together. One vast chest rising and falling, rising and falling. It's almost beautiful in a hollow sort of way, like music without melody or prayer without faith. The overseer walks past. His boots click once against the floorboards. You keep your eyes on the threads. His shadow crosses you and then moves on, seamless as the turning of time. Somewhere behind you, a worker drops a spool. It rolls across the floor, tapping lightly against your boot before settling still. You bend, pick it up, and return it to its place. The sound it makes, a soft click, feels strangely loud, as though the room is listening. Then the rhythm resumes, always the rhythm. The air grows warmer as the sun climbs, though the light never fully reaches this side of the windows. It diffuses into a dull haze, softening the edges of everything. The colour of the walls could be white, or grey, or something in between. You can't quite remember anymore. And through it all, the bell still lingers, not in sound now, but in memory. You feel it in your pulse, in the tiny tremors of your fingers, in the slow surrender of thought. You tell yourself, it's only the beginning of the day, but it already feels like the end of something else. You glance once toward the narrow slit of a window near the ceiling. A strip of sky peers through, pale, indifferent, unreachable. A thread caught between worlds. And then you lower your gaze, take a breath that tastes faintly of metal, and begin again. The bell fades, but its echo lingers somewhere behind your ribs, as if the sound has decided to live there now. The air that fills your lungs feels heavier than before, a mix of dust, oil, and something faintly metallic that clings to the back of your throat. You rub your palms together to wake them, but the warmth never quite reaches the skin. When the overseer turns away, you wipe your hands on your apron, your fingers leaving faint grey streaks. The shift ends not with relief, but with the same dull precision that began it. Machines wind down, threads fall slack, and the silence that follows is strange, almost suspicious, like an absence too sudden to be trusted. You step outside. The world meets you with a low haze. The air tastes faintly of coal, bitter, chemical, dry. The fog carries the scent of the furnaces, of rain that never reaches the ground. It curls around the narrow streets and between the chimneys, twisting through the alleys like breath from something enormous and asleep. You pull your shawl tighter around your shoulders and start walking. The cobblestones beneath your feet glisten with yesterday's soot, slick as worn glass. Each step lands with a faint tap that's quickly swallowed by the fog. Somewhere ahead, a cart creaks under the weight of raw cotton bales. Somewhere behind, a door closes with a sigh. You keep moving, one step after another. Not quickly, not slowly, just as you always have. The city hums beneath the quiet, a low vibration that never really stops. It's the hum of 1,000 furnaces, of engines turning, of breaths taken and released in perfect mechanical rhythm. The buildings lean close, their bricks blackened by years of smoke, their windows filmed over with grime. You can almost see the ghosts of yesterday's light trapped in them, faint, pale reflections of a sun that doesn't seem to belong here anymore. Your path winds past a row of narrow houses. Each door looks the same, paint cracked, hinges rusted, a faint trail of ash collected in the corners. Laundry hangs between them like surrendered flags, stiff and grey. From one window you hear a baby's thin cry, muffled by distance and fatigue. From another, a cough, the same dry rhythm you've learned to ignore. You reach the bakery at the corner. The smell of yeast and heat drifts faintly from within, a sweetness that feels out of place here, like music in a graveyard. You slow your pace for a moment, just to breathe it in, and for a heartbeat you remember something. Fields, perhaps, or the way sunlight once felt against your face. But memory doesn't pay rent, and the moment folds itself away again. A man walks past you carrying a stack of ledgers under his arm. His coat is long, clean, too fine for this part of town. He doesn't look at you, and you don't look at him, but the space between you smells briefly of ink and rain, sharp and foreign. You turn down a narrower lane. The fog thickens here, curling against the walls and curling around your boots. A lamplighter moves ahead of you, his pole raised, coaxing faint yellow orbs into existence. The light catches the particles in the air, ash, dust, threads of cotton, turning them into tiny galaxies that float for a moment before disappearing. It's strange how beauty can survive in places that seem built to deny it, but then again, it's easy to mistake exhaustion for peace. You pass by the canal. The water is still, a black mirror broken only by the drift of discarded fibres. The reflection of the mill's chimney stretches across it like a scar. A barge moves slowly along, its cargo covered by canvas, the oars dipping in and out of the surface with quiet obedience. The air smells of oil and wet wood. Somewhere nearby a bell rings, softer this time. Not for work, but for time itself, as if the city is reminding you that even hours have owners. The ground grows uneven as you climb the small incline leading back toward your lodging. Your breath comes in small visible clouds now, dissolving as quickly as they appear. The street widens briefly into a square, a place that might once have been meant for gathering, though now it only gathers silence. A broken clock hangs above a shuttered shop, its hands frozen at past, something long forgotten. You pause there, not to rest, but because movement itself feels optional for a moment. You listen, not for anything in particular, just to the soft drone of existence around you. The ticking that doesn't tick, the far-off hiss of steam, the distant murmur of lives running parallel to yours, never crossing, never stopping. A horse passes, its hooves dull against the cobbles, steam curling from its nostrils. The driver stares straight ahead, eyes sunken, the reins held loose in his hands. The wheels cut shallow grooves in the soot before vanishing into the fog again. You look up. Above the haze, the sky's neither blue nor grey, but some tired shade in between. It's the colour of old paper, of fabric left too long in the rain. You can't tell if the day is beginning or ending, only that it continues. A group of children run past you, their laughter high and thin. Their clothes are torn, their faces streaked with grime, but their energy feels almost defiant, like sparks escaping a dying fire. You wonder how long that lasts. You wonder if you ever sounded like that. You turn the last corner before the row of mill houses. The fog has thinned here, replaced by the faint glow of gas lamps. The light makes everything look softer. The bricks, the faces, even the puddles. You walk slower now, though you don't know why. There's nowhere to hurry to, and no one waiting. You step aside to let a woman pass. She carries a bundle of fabric under her arm, her gaze fixed ahead. The scent of wet wool follows her. Sharp, sour, familiar. You nod out of habit, though she doesn't see you. The moment passes as easily as breath. The door to your room sticks when you push it open. Inside, the air feels still, as if it's been holding its breath since you left. You sit on the edge of the bed. The boards beneath creak, answering the sound of your boots being untied. Your hands shake faintly, though from cold or weariness you can't tell. You rest your elbows on your knees, staring at the floorboards, where tiny threads of lint have gathered like small clouds. The smell of coal drifts in through the cracks in the window. You can almost hear the machines again, even though they're silent now. The rhythm echoing faintly through the city. Through you. It occurs to you that the mill doesn't stop working when you leave it. It simply continues inside your head. A soundless repetition. Gears turning without motion. Threads weaving through thought. You close your eyes, but the rhythm remains, steady and familiar, as if it's been stitched into your pulse. The fog presses faintly against the glass outside, blurring the shape of the lamplight. It looks almost kind from this distance. You watch it for a while, until your breathing slows and the line between waking and memory begins to fade. And there, in that half space between thought and rest, you realise the city hums like a heart that forgot how to stop. You breathe out, the sound dissolves into the fog, and the night folds around you like cloth. The morning returns without ceremony. It doesn't arrive so much as it resumes, a dim pulse behind the curtains, a slow seep of light that feels more like exhaustion than renewal. The air in the room is cool, but your body carries the warmth of restless sleep, that shallow kind that leaves the mind heavier than before. You open your eyes to the same muted ceiling, the same stains, the same faint rhythm of footsteps outside that mark the beginning of another day. You sit up slowly, the floorboards cold beneath your feet. Somewhere beyond the wall, water drips, steady, unhurried. You listen to it for a moment, until its sound blends with the hum that never truly stops. The mill lives just beyond the street, breathing through the city's ribs. Even when you can't hear it, it feels as though the air vibrates with its heartbeat. You dress in the same clothes, the fabric stiff and smelling faintly of machine oil. When you tie your apron, the knot falls into place, as if it remembers its own shape. You light a small flame in the corner stove. The match hisses, sputters, then burns down faster than you expect. The water in the tin pot never quite boils, but you drink it anyway, its warmth shallow but sufficient. Outside, the fog has thinned. The streets glisten from the night's drizzle, and a sheen of coal dust sparkles faintly where the weak sunlight tries to catch it. You walk without thought. Your feet already know the turns, the cracks, the uneven stones. The same cat watches from the same windowsill, its fur now dull with soot. A cart creaks past, its wheels cutting through shallow puddles. And then without fanfare, you are there again. The factory gates are open, the same slow river of bodies drifting inward. Faces blank as slate. The bell hasn't rung yet, but it will. It always will. You step through the threshold. The first breath inside is thick, a mixture of oil, steam, and damp cotton. The scent wraps itself around you, heavy and familiar, like a blanket you can't remove. The sound follows, the slow mechanical awakening of the looms, each one sighing into motion. The floorboards hum beneath your boots as belts tighten overhead. The great wheels begin their endless circles, each tooth catching another, pulling, spinning, stretching the world into motion. Threads tremble in their frames, thin as spider silk, taut with tension. The machines breathe, in and out, a synchronized chorus that fills every space between thought and silence. You take your place. The stool feels colder today, or perhaps you're just noticing it more. Your hands find their pattern automatically. Reach, thread, tie, guide, repeat. The rhythm returns like muscle memory, a language older than speech. You don't think about the work. Thinking would only slow you down. The trick you've learned is to surrender, to let the movement carry you until it becomes indistinguishable from breathing. The light through the high windows is filtered through years of soot. It glows faintly gold, though it never truly brightens. Dust floats in slow spirals, catching the glow and vanishing again. It's almost beautiful in a way that doesn't help. Around you, others move in the same slow dance. A girl 2 frames down winds thread with her head bent low. Her fingers are quick, her expression blank. The boy beside her, younger, smaller, pushes a trolley stacked with bobbins, his face lost beneath the shadow of the machinery. He coughs once, short and sharp, then keeps moving. The overseer's steps are steady, predictable. You can tell where he is by the rhythm of the floorboards. A dull, even pattern that passes and returns like the ticking of a clock. He doesn't shout. He doesn't have to. The machines enforce discipline more effectively than any voice could. You lean closer to adjust the thread. The spinning frame shudders under your hands, alive, impatient. One loose fibre catches your sleeve, pulling you forward just enough to feel the tug. You freeze. For a moment, you see the thread stretch and quiver, before snapping, a faint white line breaking in the air like breath in winter. You exhale, pull your sleeve free, and start again. The sound of the room deepens as the day wears on, a layered hum that fills your ears until you can no longer tell where one machine ends and another begins. It becomes something like weather, a storm that never passes. You start to feel the vibration in your bones, a low, steady thrum that moves with your heartbeat. When you swallow, it's as though the rhythm continues inside your throat. Time loses its shape here. Hours smear into one another, marked only by the overseer's pacing or the faint tremor in your fingers when you pause. There's no sky, no change in light to measure the day by, only the unbroken repetition, the wheel turning endlessly on its track. You catch yourself staring at a single floating fibre, watching how it drifts upward in the warm air before dissolving into the shadows near the ceiling. You think about how light it must be, how easily it escapes the pull of gravity, the pull of work. Then it disappears, and your eyes return to the threads before you. The air thickens with lint as the morning deepens. It settles on skin, in hair, in lungs. You can taste it now, dry and faintly sweet, like paper left too long in the sun. Each breath feels shallower than the last, though you've stopped noticing the difference. You hear another cough nearby, then another. The sound moves through the rows like a ripple, then fades beneath the machinery's hum. When a belt snaps, a whip of noise that cuts the air, everyone flinches instinctively, though no one stops. The overseer steps forward, gestures to a mechanic, and within moments the rhythm restores itself. You realise how quickly the room heals over its disruptions, how nothing ever truly pauses here. Your hands ache now. The motion that once felt automatic begins to drag, each gesture slower, heavier. You flex your fingers and watch the fine dust rise from your skin, drifting away like smoke. Somewhere, the clock strikes a faint metallic note, though the sound feels distant, like something remembered rather than heard. A shadow crosses your station, the boy with the bobbins again. His face is flushed, eyes watering from the dust. You hand him the spool you've finished, and for a moment your fingers brush his. His skin is warm, trembling slightly. He gives a small nod, not of thanks, not exactly, and moves on. You look down at your lap. Threads cling to the fabric of your dress, white against grey. You try to brush them away, but they only shift places, moving from one surface to another, never truly gone. The light through the window has dulled again. The day has moved without asking you to notice. The hum continues, steady and absolute. You lower your gaze back to the frame, take hold of the thread, and feed it through once more. The fibres tighten, twist, and vanish into the moving parts. You feel it then, that faint pull somewhere deep beneath your sternum. The sense that the machine is not separate from you anymore. You breathe when it breathes. You stop when it stops. You've become part of its rhythm, its endless inhalation of time and motion. Someone laughs faintly in the distance, a dry, tired sound that dissolves almost immediately into the air. You can't tell if it was humour or surrender. Maybe they're the same thing now. You blink. Dust stings your eyes. The overseer's shadow drifts past again, and the reflection of his pocket watch glints once in the dim light. You keep moving, because movement is all there is. The threads hum, the pulleys creak, and time stretches, long, thin, unbroken, indistinguishable from the lint that floats through the air like tired snow. The light inside the mill has thickened. The air moves in slow spirals, heavy with lint and fatigue, and you feel it cling to the back of your throat, like something you've swallowed by mistake. The hum of the looms, once a background murmur, now presses closer, an endless, mechanical choir that never seems to pause for breath. Your hands know what to do without asking you anymore. They reach, tie, twist and guide as though they've been detached from thought, working on instinct, on muscle memory, on something older than you. And then, like the shadow cast by the gears themselves, he appears, the overseer. You don't hear him arrive, you never do. He moves with a precision that belongs to the place, as if the factory walls themselves know to part for him. His boots strike the wooden floor in an even, deliberate rhythm, a metronome to the endless music of the machines. Each step is measured, neither hurried nor slow, an efficient kind of presence. He is not cruel, not kind, but exact. The overseer smells faintly of oil and ink. His coat, a dark practical wool, carries the scent of ledgers and lamp smoke. There's a thin smudge of graphite near his cuff, where he's been tallying production counts. Numbers are his companions, yards spun, hours logged, wages owed. You nod when he passes because that is what you're meant to do. He nods back, a faint impersonal tilt, and the moment disappears into the turning of the machines. You realise you have not heard a true silence in days. He stops by one of the spinning frames, inspecting a reel that's begun to wobble unevenly. The girl tending it, no older than 12, you think, tenses, her movements becoming painfully careful. He doesn't speak. He simply adjusts the belt with a practiced flick and moves on. The girl exhales, but the breath comes out as a cough, swallowed quickly, as though sound itself is unwelcome here. The air is full of suspended motion, fibre floating, belts turning, a constant mechanical heartbeat. The overseer blends into it, part man, part mechanism. You sometimes imagine that he was born here, that he never leaves, that when the mill doors close at night, he simply folds himself into one of the shadows and waits for morning. There's a saying among the workers, whispered in the lunch breaks, that aren't quite long enough to feel real. The overseer doesn't sleep. He just winds himself tighter. You don't know if it's true, but you've never seen him yawn. He keeps his distance from the laughter too, what little of it exists. Sometimes in rare moments between shifts of the great spinning frames, a boy will tell a small joke, or hum a tune learned from a pub, he's too young to enter. The others will glance up, just for a second, remembering that sound can mean something other than the grind of progress. But the moment he appears, the hum falters, the threads resume their steady rhythm, and the air falls back into obedience. You think of him as a kind of ghost, the guardian spirit of productivity, walking the aisles to make sure every life ticks in harmony with the great machine. Once you catch his reflection in the small window of a glass gauge. For a moment, his eyes meet yours, distorted by the curve of the glass. They are neither harsh nor soft, just the colour of tired paper. You look away first. He keeps watching for a few seconds longer, then makes a note in his book. You imagine what might be written there. Not your name, surely. Perhaps a number, a tally of hands that work well, or hands that slow the rhythm. It doesn't matter which you are, only that you fit into the count. The overseer moves on, and time follows him. You watch as he disappears behind the rows of frames, swallowed by the cotton mist and the turning belts. Without him, the room feels both larger and emptier. The hum remains, of course, but there's something else, something like the faint relief of being unobserved. For a moment, your breath feels your own again, but only for a moment, because his shadow lingers long after he's gone. It stays in the corners of the room, under the dripping pipes, behind the whirring pulleys. You catch yourself adjusting the thread tension more carefully, rechecking the spools more often. Even when you are sure he isn't near, you still move as though he might be. The overseer has become less of a man, more of a condition, something baked into the very rhythm of your work. There is an odd comfort in that predictability. The same glance, the same nod, the same silent expectation. You know what to fear and what to avoid. You know how not to be seen too much. And so, when his shape reappears at the far end of the hall, moving again like the pendulum of an invisible clock, you feel not dread, but recognition. The clock must keep time. Your fingers ache, but they keep working. The skin along your knuckles has gone pale and dry, cracking where the thread rubs against it. You no longer notice the pain in full, only in flashes, like the brief sting of a splinter you forget to pull out. When the overseer's boots pass close by, the ache seems to dull even further, as if your body itself learns to quiet down in his presence. He pauses again near the window, where a square of grey daylight leaks through the grime. For a brief instant, that faint light softens his outline, makes him seem almost human again. He stares outside toward the smokestacks that rise beyond the mill. The smoke moves in columns, slow, deliberate, obedient. It could almost be beautiful, if it weren't for the way it blots out the sky. Then he turns back to the rows of workers, his gaze sweeping across the sea of bent heads and shifting shoulders. The moment of softness is gone. His pen scratches something onto his clipboard, and he walks on. You lose sight of him again, but his presence remains like a heartbeat in the air. The looms hum in sympathy, the belts sigh, the dust spins. And as the hours stretch thin, you begin to feel the strange, hollow comfort of routine, a rhythm so complete it erases thought. The overseer's shadow has merged with yours now. When you move, it moves. When you breathe, it measures the breath. You wonder quietly if anyone ever leaves this place entirely, or if the mill keeps a small part of everyone who's worked within its walls. The clock strikes noon somewhere above you, muffled beneath the machinery's drone. A brief pause comes, thin and uncertain. The overseer stops again at the door, checking his watch, then nods once, to himself, to the mill, to the air that carries the dust, and steps outside. The machinery keeps spinning, and you, caught between the rhythm and the quiet he leaves behind, find that your hands do not stop. You keep working as though he was still there, as though he always will be. The break, if it can be called that, passes like the faint outline of a dream. A few mouthfuls of bread, a sip of tepid water, a glance toward the grey light leaking through high windows. Then the bell rings again, thin and metallic, and you rise with the rest, returning to your place beneath the slow-turning belts. The air hasn't changed. If anything, it feels thicker now, as though the morning's work has steeped in the room, turning it into something you must breathe through rather than with. You clear your throat, but the sound that comes out is small, useless. The dust has its way of staying. It lodges itself between breath and word, making conversation feel expensive. You try again, a quiet cough, but it only scratches deeper, leaving a faint metallic taste behind. It's not pain exactly, more of a constant reminder that you're inhaling the factory itself. All around you, others cough too. Not all at once, never in unison, but enough to make a rhythm of it. A quiet percussion between the turning gears and spinning reels. One after another, like the mill is exhaling through its workers. The sound blends with the machine so seamlessly that you begin to hear it as part of the music of labour, a necessary harmony in the song of progress. The overseer doesn't comment. He walks the aisles as before, head tilted slightly, as though he can hear something beyond human pitch, the sound of efficiency itself. The coughs are invisible to his ledger, and therefore they do not exist. You adjust your stance, feeling the wood of the floor vibrate faintly beneath your soles. Every movement here seems to create its own echo, a thread snapping, a spool turning, a throat clearing. The air hums with life and decay in equal measure. Above, narrow shafts of light cut through the haze, catching floating lint that drifts like snow in slow motion. You watch it dance briefly before it settles, on hair, on clothes, on skin slick with perspiration. The mill has a way of entering you, through nose, through lungs, through the smallest pores of your being. It fills every gap left by thought or feeling until all that's left is routine. Inhale, exhale, repeat. A boy near your station, thin, his shirt collar frayed, his eyes wide with that particular dullness that comes from growing up too soon, wipes his nose on his sleeve. It leaves a pale grey streak across the fabric. He doesn't notice. He's too focused on tying a broken thread before it catches the wheel. Again. You remember being like that once, before time blurred, before you stopped measuring the hours and started measuring the turns. The air smells faintly of warm oil and scorched cotton. Somewhere, a pulley squeals, and a man hurries to tighten the belt. The noise dies back to its usual hum, but the faint tremor lingers in your chest, as though your ribs themselves have become another part of the machinery. Another cough comes, this time from you, rougher, deeper. It feels like something inside wants to escape, but doesn't know the way out. You swallow, forcing it back down. There is work to do. At the far end of the room, one of the older women lifts her apron to her mouth. Her shoulders tremble, her body bent like a wire under strain. The cough shakes her thin frame for nearly half a minute before she straightens again, eyes watering. She mutters a quiet apology to no one in particular and resumes her motion, guiding the cotton through the rollers as though nothing happened. No one looks at her, not out of cruelty, just habit. The cough is as ordinary as breathing now. You only notice it when it stops. There's a saying whispered in the corridors, carried between breaths. The mill takes what it needs. Some say it's the lint that does it, fine threads of cotton floating invisibly into the lungs, weaving themselves into the body until breath becomes a kind of fabric. Others say it's just fatigue, the body protesting the endless air of work. Whatever it is, it becomes you, cell by cell. Once you remember hearing a doctor speak on a street corner, something about brown lungs, fibrosis, and the air turning against you. You didn't understand the words, not really. You just knew he spoke with the same distant pity the overseer has when a belt breaks, regretful, but uninterested in stopping the machine. The thought passes like smoke. You pull another spool toward you. The coarse thread biting at your fingertips. Every few seconds, you pause to wipe your nose, not realizing how grey the cloth has become. When you glance at the others, their faces look pale, dusted with a faint shimmer, a congregation of ghosts working beneath the gears. You wonder faintly when you last heard laughter that wasn't followed by a cough. A clock somewhere above ticks faintly beneath the din. You think it might be early afternoon, though time here folds in on itself, elastic and directionless. The heat from the machinery builds as the sun rises, turning the air thick and heavy, almost damp. Sweat trickles down your back, but the dust catches it before it can fall, making a paste that clings to the skin. The cough returns. Not yours this time. A man across the aisle, bent double, gasping for air. His wheezing cuts through the hum, an uneven stutter that draws no reaction from anyone nearby. When he straightens, he spits into a rag and folds it away quickly, as if embarrassed by the evidence of his own humanity. The overseer walks past without looking down. His pen scratches against paper. The numbers continue to climb. You think of the word progress. It used to sound proud, like a march or a promise. Here it sounds like the rasp of worn lungs, the grind of teeth at night, the endless turning of wheels that never lead anywhere. Progress, you think, has a cough. It isn't the violent kind, not the type that startles or alarms. It's quiet, persistent. It lingers in corners, in rafters, in the hollow of your throat. It's the echo of thousands breathing the same air, day after day, until the difference between life and labour becomes faint enough to ignore. You reach for a fresh spool and your fingers slip. The reel tumbles to the floor, bouncing once before settling in the layer of lint. You stoop to pick it up, and for a moment your head swims. When you straighten, the room seems softer around the edges, the lines between things blurred by heat and repetition. You blink, but the haze stays. It takes a while to realise you're still holding your breath. When you exhale, the cough comes again, dry and trembling, scattering a faint cloud of dust into the air before you. It sparkles briefly in the thin sunlight, a small galaxy of lint suspended in stillness. You watch it settle, the way snow does, covering everything equally. The machines, the floor, your sleeve, your skin. And beneath the steady thrum of progress, you hear it again. That chorus of quiet, restrained coughs, rising and falling like waves. It's almost soothing now, familiar, a lullaby of industry. You breathe in, slowly, because there's no other choice. The taste of cotton lingers on your tongue, and the mill, satisfied, keeps breathing through you. The bell doesn't so much ring as sigh, a thin metallic tremor that quivers through the floorboards and out across the rows of workers. No one looks up at first. The sound has become so woven into your bones that it takes a heartbeat to understand. It means pause. The machines slow reluctantly, like beasts called to heel. The great belts above you wheeze, exhaling a long ribbon of air that smells faintly of iron and grease. You wipe your palms against your trousers. They leave pale streaks, a powder of lint and sweat. The ache in your shoulders blooms into awareness again, no longer disguised by the motion of work. Around you, the others drift away from their stations, not hurried, not relaxed, just moving with that same practiced fatigue. There's no chatter, no real break in the silence, only a different kind of quiet, one that carries the shape of exhaustion rather than noise. You take your bread from the small cloth you keep tucked behind a beam. It's gone stiff from the morning's heat. Beside it, a tin of weak tea still holds the ghost of warmth. You carry them to the far window, the one with glass fogged and streaked by years of grime. The sill there is wide enough to sit, just barely. The light that seeps through is dull, colourless, a grey filtered through dust. But it feels precious, a fragile visitor slipping past the watchful machines. You sit carefully, balancing the bread on your knee, the tea tin beside you. Your fingers leave faint smudges on the glass when you touch it, tracing a circle just large enough to see the world outside. It looks quieter out there, though you know it isn't. Beyond the yard, the town slopes downward in uneven rows of brick. Chimneys rise from the roofs, like blackened candles, their smoke joining the same low ceiling that hangs over every street. A cart rolls by, its wheels kicking up the day's soot. Somewhere, a church bell tolls the hour, its sound softened by distance until it feels like part of the air itself. You chew slowly. The bread tastes faintly of the sack it was kept in. Dry but familiar. You sip the tea. It's gone bitter. Still, you drink it. Not for pleasure, but because it gives the illusion of warmth spreading through you. Behind you, the looms have gone still, their silence unnerving in its depth. You can hear things now that the noise usually devours. The faint dripping of condensation from a pipe, the creak of a stool, the rasp of someone clearing their throat. You notice the coughs more clearly this way. The small sharp punctuation marks in the heavy air. Some workers sit on the floor, some stand. A few rest their heads against the wood, eyes closed, as if pretending this pause could last longer than it will. The smell of the place changes too. Without the churn of machines, the air feels heavier, thick with the residue of steam and human breath. You can taste the cotton dust when you swallow, like something half sweet and stale. For a moment, you let your eyes rest on the scene outside again. There's a child in the street, maybe 6 or 7, tugging at his mother's skirt. She's bent over a basket, folding laundry in the faint breeze. The white fabric flashes bright against the soot-dark buildings, almost startling in its cleanness. The boy points toward the mill, toward where you sit, though you doubt he can see you. His mouth moves, asking something. The mother shakes her head and pulls him along. You wonder what she said. A whistle somewhere below startles a few birds from the roof. They scatter into the grey, their wings catching the light for a moment, before dissolving into the haze. You watch them go, then look back down at your bread. Only a corner remains. You finish it even though you aren't hungry. The meal feels more ritual than sustenance, a small act to divide one half of the day from the next. The others eat the same way, without words, chewing in slow unison. Even the sounds of eating are soft, deliberate. In another life, you think, this might almost be reverent. The window glass cools against your shoulder as you lean back. The faint hum of machinery lingers in the bones of the building, like a memory that refuses to sleep. You can feel it through the wood, a distant vibration, steady and low. It's strange to realize how much you've grown used to it. Silence now feels unnatural, almost untrustworthy, like a held breath waiting to end. Someone beside you breaks a piece of bread in half, offering it silently to a younger boy. The gesture is simple, almost invisible. No one thanks anyone in the mill. Gratitude feels too extravagant, too loud for this place. But you see the exchange, the hands, the quiet nod, and you feel something small and human stir beneath the exhaustion. The boy eats quickly, crumbs catching in the fabric of his shirt. You think about the first time you sat here, years ago perhaps, before the rhythm of the work had worn the edges off your thoughts. Back then, you might have looked out the same window and imagined leaving, the street stretching away, the hills beyond the smoke. You don't do that anymore. The imagination takes too much effort, and you have none to spare. The glass has grown warm now faintly as the sun climbs higher. The light sharpens the dust in the air, turning it into something almost beautiful, a slow storm of particles suspended between movement and stillness. You reach out, let your fingers disturb it, watch the tiny motes swirl and drift before settling again. Time here behaves the same way. When the overseer passes near the door, you hear his boots before you see him. He doesn't speak, only glances once across the room. His shadow glides over the floor, pausing briefly on the wall before it fades. The moment feels like the end of something. A faint gust sneaks through the crack in the window, carrying a smell that's not from the mill. Damp earth, Coal smoke, the faint suggestion of rain. It feels foreign, luxurious, almost cruel in its reminder that another world still exists beyond these walls. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing it in. Then the bell calls again, a single metallic note that cuts through the air with delicate finality. The bodies around you stir, the brief pause already folding back into obedience. You set your tin aside, brush the crumbs from your lap, and stand. The sill creaks under your weight, the glass shivering faintly in its frame. Outside, the street has emptied. Only the smoke moves now, endless and soft, rising into a sky that never seems to clear. You look at it once more, memorizing the shape of the horizon, though you'll see it again tomorrow, exactly the same, as if time here has forgotten how to pass properly. Then you turn from the window, back toward the rows of frames waiting in the dim light. The air greets you like a familiar ache. The hum begins to build again, one machine at a time, until the room trembles with motion. Threads pull taut, belts turn, wheels find their rhythm. You take your place among them. The day continues, not loudly, not cruelly, just endlessly. And as the light fades back into the dust, the last trace of your lunch, the taste of stale bread, the echo of that brief stillness, dissolves quietly into the cough of the mill's resumed breath. The air thickens again as the afternoon settles over the mill like a damp cloth. The hum of the machines rises to its steady pitch, not louder, just deeper, as though the building itself has drawn a long breath and decided to keep it. The faint taste of tea still lingers at the back of your tongue, but it's lost its warmth, turned metallic in the mouth. You stand again at your post, shoulders squared without thought, and the rhythm resumes its slow claiming of the hours. It happens quietly, the way time begins to lose its edges. The motions of work dissolve into one another until you can't tell if you've been here for minutes or days. Threads slide through your fingers in an unbroken current. The sound of the looms becomes a kind of weather, omnipresent, inescapable, something that no longer needs your attention to exist. Your body continues, faithful and automatic, while your mind drifts elsewhere. Not far, not into anything bright or extraordinary. Just a slow, wandering float through fragments of thought that never quite form into anything complete. A half memory of a street at dawn, the way sunlight once touched brick when it was clean, the shape of a loaf still warm enough to steam. Nothing sharp, nothing that could hurt. A girl beside you hums under her breath, a sound too faint to have a tune. It might not even be humming. It might be the low vibration of fatigue, mistaken for song. Her fingers move faster than yours, smaller, more certain, though her eyes stay dull, open but unfocused, as if sight has become too expensive to waste. You glance at the clock near the far wall, its face half obscured by grime. The hands seem not to move, though when you look again later, they have shifted imperceptibly forward. You start to wonder if they move only when no one watches. A spool slips from a rack, rolling across the floor with a hollow clatter before disappearing into the grey beneath the machines. No one stoops to retrieve it. The overseer walks by moments later, his pen marking something unseen, and the incident evaporates from notice. You cough once quietly. The sound folds into the air, indistinguishable from the 1,000 other small noises that live here. The same taste rises again. Dust and oil, cotton and iron. You drink from your tin, but the water is warm and sour, offering no relief. The afternoon has its own kind of weight. It presses down in layers, heat, fatigue, repetition, until thought feels like an indulgence. The world narrows to the few square feet in front of you. The steady pull of thread, the faint tremor of the floor beneath your boots. You begin to move, not through time, but through motion itself. Sometimes, when your eyes blur from the strain, the cotton drifting in the air seems to glow faintly, like a slow snowfall under hidden sunlight. It makes everything soft around the edges, even the machines. For a fleeting second, you imagine the whole mill floating, suspended, untethered, a quiet universe of dust and rhythm. Then a belt snaps somewhere, and the illusion vanishes in the jolt of sound. Someone curses softly. The overseer appears steady as a shadow, inspecting the break. He doesn't scold, just gestures for a repair. The worker responsible nods mutely, hands already reaching for the spare. The hum resumes before you've even finished blinking. The smell of scorched fibre rises from the friction of the machines. It mingles with sweat and steam, a blend so familiar it's almost comforting. The skin on your hands has roughened, the fine cuts filled with lint, turning pale and dry. You rub your fingers together and feel them rasp like worn paper. The girl beside you stops humming. Her lips move, maybe a prayer or maybe nothing. You don't ask. Words here are rare. They evaporate too quickly in the noise, and most things don't need saying anyway. A soft wind slips in through a crack near the ceiling. It carries a faint trace of rain, or something like it, moisture, real or imagined. The movement of air feels foreign against your neck, almost startling. You close your eyes for a heartbeat to feel it more clearly. For that single moment, you remember that air can be something other than dust. Then a small hand brushes your sleeve, the same girl pointing toward your thread. It's tangled, thin as a hair, but enough to stall the machine. You nod, fixing it quickly, fingers remembering what thought forgets. The loom resumes its rhythm, and she returns to her work. No words, just motion. Somewhere across the room, a man hums an off-key melody. It sounds like a song half remembered from before the noise, before the endless hum. Others begin to catch it without meaning to, their breaths sinking to its slow pulse. For a few minutes, the mill becomes a kind of quiet choir, built not from voices but from the simple agreement of survival. The song fades, as all things do here. The clock's hands crawl again, and the light outside the high windows shifts. Not brighter, not darker, just different. You can't see the sky, but you can feel its change in the hue of the light filtering through the grime. Afternoon deepens. Shadows from the beams stretch longer across the floor, their lines trembling slightly in the vibration of the machinery. You find yourself thinking, not about escape, but about distance. How far this place feels from anything else. How even the town beyond the walls has begun to fade into something imagined. A faint geography of memory. The mill has its own gravity, its own orbit, and everything that enters seems to circle here forever. The repetition becomes strangely soothing. Each movement fits into the next like links in an unending chain. You reach, you guide, you tie. The mind drifts, untethered but never gone. You think about nothing in particular, which feels like a kind of peace. A thread snaps again, but you fix it before it becomes a problem. The overseer passes behind you, silent, his presence measured. You catch the faint smell of ink again, and then he's gone. The girl to your right yawns, covering her mouth with the back of her hand. The gesture feels enormous in this place, a rebellion of softness. You nearly smile, but don't. Smiles are fragile things here. They crumble under the weight of the air. The hum of the mill deepens once more, as though it knows the day is beginning to fold inward. The vibrations in the floor grow steadier, smoother. You imagine the building itself swaying slightly with each turn of its wheels, a slow, endless breathing. The sound seeps into your bones until it feels less like noise and more like pulse. Somewhere in that haze, your thoughts fade entirely. There's no sense of self, no before or after, only motion and breath, thread and dust. The afternoon drifts by unnoticed, like smoke that refuses to rise. When the bell rings again, faint, distant, and almost kind, it takes you a moment to realize what it means. The others straighten slowly, stretching arms stiffened by labour. The hum lowers by degrees, the machines slowing to their tired halt. You exhale without realising you've been holding your breath. The silence that follows feels strange again. Too clean, too bright. You blink against it, eyes adjusting to stillness, the way they once adjusted to light. The day hasn't ended yet, but you can feel the weight of its descent, and somewhere beyond the layers of dust and smoke, the sun has already begun its slow retreat, the world outside dimming as the mill prepares to swallow the evening whole. The bell's echo still trembles through the rafters when your eyes find the clock again. That tired face, smeared with oil and lint, suspended high above the floor like a reluctant god. Its hands have moved, but not with generosity. Each minute carved from you feels measured, not past. The afternoon has lost its colour. Everything is tinted the grey of fatigue. The air, your skin, even the threads that run through your fingers. You've learned to follow the rhythm of the machines, but the clock demands a different obedience. It keeps its own pace, slow and exact, indifferent to sweat, indifferent to pain. You know its sound by heart now, the low, hollow tick that hides beneath the louder hum of industry. Most don't hear it anymore. Their minds tune it out, surrendering to the heavier noise. But you hear it still, a small reminder that time hasn't stopped, even if it no longer feels like it belongs to you. The mill stretches around you, beams sagging under the weight of years, the air trembling with dust and heat. You can taste metal at the back of your tongue, the faint bitterness of oil mixed with sweat. The spinning frames twist and turn, their belts alive, their rhythm more certain than breath. You move as they do, tethered to their motion. But the clock, that quiet overseer, keeps its distance. It does not shout, it does not strike, it only watches. Hours pass as indistinct shadows, one bleeding into the next. The workers closest to you have stopped speaking altogether. Their faces are pale, expressions hollowed into something that barely resembles emotion. It isn't sadness or even resignation, it's simply the absence of both. The same kind of emptiness you've begun to recognise in yourself. A drop of sweat falls from your chin, caught in the faint draft that crawls along the floor. You rub your neck, the muscles tight, the skin damp and rough. Somewhere nearby, a spool falls again, rolling lazily until it stops against your boot. You pick it up, almost tenderly, as though it were something living. The clock continues its slow count. Tick, tick, tick. The seconds sound heavy now, heavier than the clattering of the looms. Each one feels like it drags a memory behind it. The smell of bread, the warmth of morning light through a window, the laughter that once came without effort. The mill grinds those things down, but time refuses to let them vanish entirely. It keeps them faintly alive, like ghosts trapped in the rafters. You start to wonder if the clock pities you. It sits there, unmoving except for its hands, a quiet witness to every cough, every cut, every stumble. Perhaps it sighs each evening when the bell rings, when you all shuffle out with your spines bent and your eyes glazed. Perhaps it, too, is tired of measuring the suffering. The overseer walks past again. His shadow crosses your feet. The smell of his ink follows, sharp and bitter. He glances at the clock. Not you, then notes something in his small ledger. Time is his ally. It gives his authority shape. You imagine him winding that clock every morning, ensuring that neither of you will ever escape its rhythm. Another hour crawls by. The light beyond the windows has dimmed further, the day beginning to rot into evening. You can see the faint reflection of the gas lamps flickering to life in the glass. They shudder as they burn, their light more yellow than white, staining everything with the sickly hue of fatigue. A faint ache rises behind your eyes. The noise of the machines begins to blend into a single endless sound. Not quite mechanical anymore, but human in its exhaustion. You realise the difference between man and machine. Here is only measured in time. Metal wears slower than flesh. The clock tells you you've been here 10 hours. Your body insists it's been more. You try not to think of the world beyond the mill, but thoughts have a way of slipping through the cracks. Somewhere outside, a cart must be rattling down the cobblestone street. Somewhere, someone is closing their shop for the day, washing flour from their hands, watching the sun bleed through the fog. That life feels distant now, like a story someone once told you before the noise began. A cough breaks through the air behind you, then another. The sound multiplies, carried along by the vibrations of the looms until it becomes a faint, rhythmic accompaniment. You swallow against the dryness in your throat. The dust never stops. It coats everything. Your clothes, your skin, your lungs. It feels like the building itself is trying to crawl inside you. You glance up again at the clock. Its minute hand trembles slightly, as if shivering. You imagine it hesitates, wanting to pause to give you a moment's mercy. But then it moves forward, unfeeling, precise. There is something cruel about its honesty. It doesn't lie, it doesn't promise rest. It only reminds you that there is still time left to endure. The girl who worked beside you earlier has disappeared. Her post empty now, her stool pushed back just slightly. You don't know if she's fallen ill or fainted, or been sent home. No one asks. The mill closes over her absence like water over a dropped stone. You wipe your hands on your apron and keep working. The fabric beneath your fingers feels endless, soft, fine, but born of so much hardship that its beauty almost mocks you. The threads blur together, pale and ghostly under the light. Your vision drifts again toward the clock. It seems larger now, its round face glowing faintly in the haze. You begin to imagine it breathing, a slow inhale with every swing of the pendulum, an exhale with each tick. You match your breaths to it without realizing, sinking your body to its unchanging pace. For a brief moment, you find calm in that rhythm. Not peace, not joy, just a fragile equilibrium. The mercy of knowing that no matter how heavy the hours become, they do end. The clock will not stop, but neither will it go backward. And that perhaps is the only kindness it offers. The overseer calls something from the far aisle, his voice swallowed by the machinery. You can't make out the words. The others react instinctively, their motions quickening just slightly. The floor vibrates harder, the looms whirring faster, the air thickening with heat and lint. The noise becomes a physical thing, pressing against your chest. Then without warning, the bell rings. Its sound slices through the hum, shrill and sudden, scattering thought. The machines begin to slow, one by one, their rotations faltering, sighing into stillness. The air settles, though it never clears. The silence that follows feels deafening, almost cruel. You lift your gaze once more to the clock. Its hands have reached the top. 12 hours, the end of the day. For the first time, you think you see it hesitate, the smallest stutter in its motion, as if even it feels the strain of carrying so much weight. You imagine it sighing just once before beginning again tomorrow. You step back from your station, stretching your stiff arms. Around you, the workers move like shadows, gathering their things without speech. The overseer watches, unreadable. The clock continues to tick. Its mercy, you realize, is not in the time it gives, but in the fact that it never gives too much. Outside, the dusk waits, cold, damp, and strangely free, and the clock inside remains, patient, impartial, exhausted, counting the seconds until morning drags you back. The air feels heavier after the bell. You step into the corridor that leads to the outer yard, where light leaks through dirty windows in thin, trembling ribbons. The machines have gone still, their silence almost unsettling, as if something vast is holding its breath. The world beyond them is dim and pale, but at least it breathes differently. You walk slowly, each step echoing against the worn wooden floor. The boards sigh beneath the weight of countless feet that have passed this way, each one carrying the same exhaustion, the same hope that tomorrow might somehow loosen its grip. Near the far end of the hall, you see them, the smaller figures still sweeping lint into piles, still tightening threads that no longer need tightening. Their hands move automatically, quick and delicate, more precise than yours could ever be after a decade inside this place. Children, or what's left of the word. They move like echoes of the machinery, swift, tireless, strangely silent. Their faces are dusted white with cotton, making them look older than they are, like ghostly imitations of adults. A few of them glance up as you pass, their eyes glassy and red-rimmed from the fibres that never settle. You offer a faint nod. They return it, out of habit, not recognition. A small boy crouches near a frame, tugging a length of thread from a wheel. His fingers are thin as wire, his nails broken. He works with a concentration that doesn't belong to a child, a kind of devotion, born not of interest but survival. His shirt hangs loose from his shoulders, sleeves too long, cuffs stiff with oil. You can see the faint outline of his ribs as he moves. He must be 7, maybe 8. The overseer passes behind him without pause. The boy doesn't look up, neither do you. The rhythm continues, even when the machines are still. You stop by a window, resting your hand on the sill. The glass is cool, slick with condensation. Beyond it, the sky's beginning to bruise into twilight. A dull violet pressed against the chimneys. A few flakes of ash drift lazily down, mistaken for snow by those who have never seen the real thing. Behind you, one of the girls coughs. The sound is small, sharp, quickly swallowed by the room. You turn slightly. She's wiping her mouth on her sleeve, smearing a faint trace of pink into the grey. Then she goes back to sweeping, as though nothing happened. You remember your first week here, how the noise felt unbearable, how your ears rang even after you left. You remember watching others move with such ease and wondering how long it would take to become like them. Now you move without thinking. You breathe the dust as though it were air. You have become part of the same mechanism that once frightened you. The children will too. Their world is smaller, measured not in years but in inches of thread, in turns of a wheel. They learn quickly because the mill demands it. Hesitation has no place here. Mistakes are not corrected with kindness. They are erased by repetition. You watch as one of the younger boys climbs beneath a frame to collect loose fluff. His shoulders vanish into the shadowed space. A small hand reaches up to grab the lint that clings to the underside of a spindle. The sight makes your stomach tighten. You've seen what happens when someone is too slow. You've heard the snap of belts, the screams that follow, brief and brittle. But you also know no one will stop him. The work must continue. A woman near the door hums quietly to herself. It's not a song, not really, just a rhythm, something to fill the emptiness. The children closest to her seem to move in time with it, their bodies swaying faintly as they work. The sound blends with the faint ticking of the cooling machines. Together, they form a kind of lullaby, weary, mechanical, endless. You close your eyes for a moment. The air tastes of iron and heat. Somewhere in the distance, a whistle shrills from another mill, signalling the end of another shift. You think about how many of these places there are now, rising like mushrooms from damp ground, each one filled with the same faces, the same hunger. When you open your eyes again, you see the boy from before standing near you. He's holding a spool in both hands, as though it was something fragile. He looks at you without expression. His eyes are pale grey, not curious, not afraid, simply tired. You nod, unsure why. He nods back, places the spool on a shelf, and returns to his corner. You watch him go, realising he moves exactly like you do. Each step measured, each motion practiced. Even the sigh that escapes him feels rehearsed. There's a strange quiet here now, the kind that only settles when the work stops but the mind keeps turning. You can hear the faint creak of the ceiling beams, the occasional drip from the pipes that run along the wall. You imagine the building itself growing old, its wooden bones weary from the endless vibration. You wonder if it dreams of stillness, just as you do. You notice one of the older girls sitting by the wall, her knees drawn up, her chin resting on them. Her eyes are open, but unfocused, staring somewhere past the far end of the room. A wisp of hair sticks to her cheek, damp with sweat. She can't be more than 12. You realise she isn't resting. She's simply run out of movement for the day. The overseer walks past again. His boots strike the floor with a mechanical precision. He doesn't look at her. He doesn't have to. His presence is enough to make the others straighten, quicken, resume. You stand a little taller yourself, even though you know he's not looking at you either. The habit is older than fear now. Outside, the daylight dies completely. The lamps flicker to life, humming faintly, their glow revealing the floating lint like tiny ghosts suspended in the air. The children's faces catch that yellow light, hollow and expressionless, their eyes reflecting nothing. You can almost hear the sound of the next shift arriving, a dull murmur of footsteps, another tide of bodies ready to replace the first. There's no real end here, only exchange. The mill never sleeps, it only changes its dreamers. The boy with the grey eyes looks up once more before he leaves. You watch him join the small stream of workers shuffling toward the exit, their shadows stretching long across the floorboards. You follow behind, your steps falling in rhythm with theirs. The air in the yard feels no fresher than before. Smoke drifts between the chimneys, curling in slow, tired shapes. The sound of laughter rises faintly from somewhere. Not joyful, just nervous, like something that doesn't quite know how to exist anymore. You look at the children again, their silhouettes against the dim orange of the sky. They look smaller out here, almost weightless. You wonder how long they'll last before the mill takes what little childhood they have left. You wonder if anyone will remember their names once they're gone. The thought drifts away as easily as the smoke. You breathe in, cough softly, and start walking. The street ahead glistens with soot. The lamplight pools in uneven patches along the cobblestones. A dog sleeps by a doorway, undisturbed by the shuffle of boots. Somewhere, a church bell tolls the hour, though you've already learned that time here has little meaning. You glance up one last time at the mill's high windows. Light still flickers behind them, faint, persistent, never fully dying. Inside, the clock continues to tick. Inside, the children continue to move. And the night, like the work, carries on. Without mercy, without pause, without end. The bell has rung, though you hardly notice it anymore. Its hollow clang marks nothing but the folding of one day into the next. The machines are silent now, their hum replaced by a brittle quiet that seems almost unfamiliar. The dust hangs in lazy curtains through the dim light of the high windows, moving only when someone passes or the wind finds a gap in the brickwork. You move toward the office at the far end of the mill. Your footsteps sound sharp in the sudden hush, echoing against the walls as though you are walking through someone else's memory. The overseer sits behind a desk littered with ledgers, ink stains bleeding into the paper like small rivers. He does not look up immediately, only shifts slightly, acknowledging your presence without sound. From him comes the envelope, small, folded, thin. He places it on the desk with a soft tap, the paper sliding across the wood like a weight settling into place. You pick it up carefully, as though it were fragile, though the contents have long since taught you caution. The envelope seems heavier than it should, not from coin, but from all it must replace. Hunger, weariness, hours spent bending, dust inhaled, ribs pressed by constant repetition. You fold it open, the crease resisting your fingers. Inside, the coins clink faintly, a sound that could be mistaken for promise if you weren't accustomed to their quiet deceit. You count them anyway, because that is what's done. the ritual of measurement, the small assertion that your labour has a tangible weight. Each coin falls into place, like a tiny, indifferent sun. None of them gleam, none of them comfort. A week's worth of effort, and still it feels inadequate. The numbers could be etched on the wall, and it would not change the ache in your back, the dryness in your throat, or the small wounds on your fingertips that never fully heal. You line the coins in neat rows, a pattern only you can appreciate, and for a moment they seem almost like something solid, proof that you exist, even if the world would rather forget. Outside the window, the light is fading. The sky turns from grey to the soft violet of early night, the same hue that once made you dream of leaving. Now, it merely passes through the grime, colouring the mill in muted tones. A faint breeze carries the smell of damp, earth and soot. It brushes your face, and you close your eyes, letting it remind you of a life elsewhere, a place where air does not taste of fibre and iron. Your fingers move slowly over the coins again, pressing them into the palms of your hands. They feel small, almost trivial, yet the ritual is comforting. Counting them, arranging them, touching them, it gives the illusion of control. For an hour, perhaps, you can believe that the work you've done has meaning beyond the machines, beyond the overseer, beyond the dust and the cough. A younger boy approaches one of the children who learn the rhythm of the machines faster than most. He glances at your envelope, then at you, and you offer a silent nod. He knows better than to ask questions. You see in him what you once were, small, determined, compelled by necessity rather than curiosity. He moves on quietly, returning to a corner to finish mending a thread, his tiny hands careful and quick. The overseer stirs. He never speaks more than necessary, and even when he does, his words are measured like a machine part, precise, unemotional, final. Today he makes no motion to look at the coins. He trusts you to do the work of counting, of validating, of accepting. There is a strange mercy in that indifference. You fold the envelope back into its thin shape. It resists slightly, as though remembering the weight it carried. You tuck it into your pocket with care, fingers brushing the fabric of your trousers, as if to remind yourself that something tangible remains. The coins will not satisfy, the wages will not restore, and yet they exist. They mark the passage of your days, the proof of labour endured and survived. You linger near the window, letting the last light wash over the small pile of coins in your hand before placing them back into the envelope. The motion is slow, deliberate, almost ceremonial. Outside, the street glistens with a faint sheen of moisture. Smoke rises from chimneys, curling into the violet sky, mixing with the scent of rain and coal. The world continues, indifferent, beyond the walls of the mill. A woman passes near the doorway, carrying a small bundle of cloth. She stops briefly, wiping her hands on the hem of her skirt, her face pale in the fading light. She glances at you, but does not speak. Words here are always surplus, unnecessary, easily lost in the machinery of routine. You acknowledge her with a nod. The gesture is enough. The children continue their quiet work, returning from brief rests, their energy spent but their hands never idle. They move like shadows, small and unassuming, yet impossibly resilient. You watch them and see the future in miniature, the continuation of rhythm, of repetition, of silent endurance. Each one is a testament to survival, and yet each carries the same quiet weight you do, the heavy, invisible cost of labour that is never fully repaid. The bell in the distance tolls once more, a reminder that the day is nearing its conclusion. The overseer rises, his shadow stretching long across the floor. He makes his rounds slowly, glancing at ledgers, at spools, at the workers, but never with urgency. The air trembles faintly with the echoes of what has passed. The movements, the sounds, the sweat, and the silence. You straighten your shoulders, sensing the slow pull of fatigue again. The coins in your pocket are cold, heavy reminders of what has been earned and lost. The envelope's paper crinkles faintly as you adjust it, a small protest against handling. You slide it back into the apron or coat you wear, securing it as if to carry the burden not just of money, but of all the days spent beneath the spinning frames, all the hours swallowed by the machinery, all the quiet suffering that no ledger or tally can ever fully reflect. Outside, darkness deepens. A street lamp flickers to life, casting a dim yellow circle over the cobblestones. Shadows stretch long and thin, merging with the night. You can hear the faint sound of water dripping somewhere nearby, the slow and irregular pulse of a place that does not rest. Your footsteps echo on the boards as you leave the office, careful not to jostle the envelope. The other workers are moving toward the exit as well, their shapes indistinct in the dim light. Some are small, some older, each carrying their own envelopes, their own weight of coins and hours. You recognize the ritual in them, the same slow, careful respect for a token that is both precious and insufficient. The mill doors creak as you push them open, letting in a faint draught of evening air. The smell of rain on cobblestones reaches you, mingled with the faint, persistent tang of smoke and soot. You step into it, the weight of the coins pressing lightly against your thigh, reminding you that though the day is done, the labour continues somewhere in every shadow, in every remaining thread, in every small hand that will rise before dawn tomorrow. You pause for a moment on the threshold, the cool air brushing your face, the sound of distant footsteps blending with the low murmur of the town. The envelope in your pocket feels like a small private testament, proof that you have endured, that you have moved through time, that you have counted and survived. And yet, even as you step into the night, you know it is temporary. The mill will wait, the machines will return, the overseer will continue his rounds. The clock will keep its exact, unforgiving rhythm. You tuck the envelope closer, letting the coins settle against the fabric, and begin the slow walk home, toward rest, toward sleep, toward a fleeting freedom that exists only between the tolls of labour. The night embraces you, cool and damp, as the sound of the town blends with the memory of the machines. You hear the whisper of children in the distance, echoes of footsteps, the rustle of fabric, the faint, ghostly hum of looms that have stopped but never truly left. The envelope is light in your pocket now, though it carries all the weight of a week's endurance. You count the coins once more in your mind, quietly, and then let them rest. You breathe, slow and steady, the rhythm of the mill still echoing faintly in your bones. Tomorrow it will start again, and yet, for this brief moment, you carry your small fortune, folded thin, precise, and the merciful knowledge that for now, the clock is yours to ignore. The morning feels oddly open, though the light is weak and diffused through clouds that hang low, thick and grey. The streets are quieter than usual, a subtle lull replacing the constant hum of industry. You walk slowly, your steps unhurried but heavy, carrying the residual ache of the week's labour in your shoulders and knees. Your hands, rough and stiff, are already anticipating the task ahead, the small measured ritual of cleaning what the mill has so thoroughly claimed. At the river's edge, you kneel on damp earth. The water is cold and sluggish, reflecting the dull sky above. You lower your sleeves and press the cloth of your apron into it, feeling the fibres resist and then loosen under your fingers. Soap, coarse and grainy, slips between the threads. The suds rise in tiny trembling peaks and collapse just as quickly, leaving no trace. They feel almost alive, small illusions that appear and vanish in the same moment, fragile and fleeting as your own attempts at leisure. Your arms ache almost immediately. The work demands persistence, but your mind drifts, finding small private refuges in thought. You remember the texture of your first day's apron, stiff and unfamiliar, against your skin. The scent of new thread and freshly cut cotton. How strange it is to remember that, and to still be so completely immersed in it years later. The water is murky, greyed by silt and soot from the town. You dip the cloth, swirl it, press it again. The motion becomes rhythmic, almost hypnotic, and the ache in your muscles becomes a dull companion rather than a sharp pain. Each stroke of the fabric mirrors the turning of a wheel, the swish of a spindle, the steady, inevitable pulse of the mill itself. A bird lands on a distant branch, its chirp hesitant and thin. You hardly notice at first. Your ears are tuned more to the rhythm of your own hands than the sound of life beyond the industrial hum. Yet the note lingers, delicate and insistent, a reminder that the world continues beyond spools and lint. You imagine it singing for someone else entirely, a distant melody that exists far away from your toil. You scrub harder, letting the cloth slide through the water, pressing and rubbing as though willing the dust, the sweat, and the memory of weeks past from its fibres. Tiny bubbles rise, catching the weak sunlight like flecks of glass, then break silently. You count them in your mind, though the counting is not precise, more an acknowledgement of fleeting beauty in an otherwise methodical existence. Children pass by the river, their laughter faint and unfamiliar. Some are friends from the mill, others merely neighbours, their small hands clutching what toys or scraps they have. You watch for a brief second, their world untethered by the demands of the loom. It is foreign and strange, the echo of your own youth, now compressed into hours of labour and dust, feels like a story someone else once told you. The water grows colder as the morning deepens. Your hands redden, fingers stiffening from exposure. You press harder, squeezing the moisture from the cloth until it resists your touch, then release it into the current. The river swallows it slowly, carrying away more than water and dirt, carrying traces of fatigue, of week-long tension, and the imprint of a body shaped by the mill. You pause and look at your hands. They are still rough, calloused, the skin peeling faintly from the soap. Tiny scars trace the lines of your fingers like a map of endurance. You flex them slowly, almost experimentally, feeling each joint awaken under the stretch. The sensation is simple, almost luxurious, though tinged with the faint memory of the work that has bent you into its rhythm. A breeze rustles through the reeds at the riverbank. It carries the faint smell of coal and wet earth, mingled with the sweetness of something growing beyond the town's chimneys. You inhale, letting it remind you that there is air untouched by cotton fibres, air that does not settle in your lungs with each breath like an invisible dust. For a moment, you let your chest expand fully, unhurried, almost free. You press the cloth again, watching as the water clouds and clears in turn. The motion is slow, meditative. Each stroke becomes a kind of mantra, a rhythm that carries you not into rest but into a liminal space between labour and the faintest whisper of calm. You realise, as your arms tire, that the repetition of this simple task mirrors the weeks, the months, the endless cycles of the mill. And yet, in its simplicity, it offers a fragment of choice. A small bird dips toward the river, pecking at something unseen. You watch it, noting its delicate, precise movements. In the moment, you envy its small, unencumbered body. It is not tethered by hours, by overseers, by the weight of a coin envelope, or the rhythm of a spinning frame. It moves, and that is enough. The cloth, now almost clean, slips through your fingers in a final, decisive motion. You lift it from the water, shaking the remaining droplets into the river. The act feels monumental, though small. A tiny assertion of control, proof that something can emerge renewed from effort, even if only briefly. You drape the fabric over a nearby branch, watching as it catches the faint light. Soft and worn, yet still resilient. Your clothes, though still coarse and faintly stiff, are cleaner now. The river has taken some of the week's grime with it. You tug your sleeves into place, noticing the sensation of water cooling your skin, and then evaporating, leaving it lightly tingly. You breathe deeply, the air carrying the muted fragrance of damp earth and smoke. It is not comfort, not freedom, but a fragile, momentary reprieve. You look across the river, at the distant chimneys and the faint trails of smoke that wind into the sky. The mill waits. It will always wait. You know tomorrow your hands will return to the same spools, your fingers trained to the same precision. Yet today the world seems slightly broader, stretched just beyond the reach of soot and steel. A child runs past you, splashing lightly through the puddles that collect in the uneven stones. You watch the ripples chase each other across the water, fragile and short-lived. Their energy is a faint echo of what you once carried. A reminder that even in this life, small movements can have effect. You imagine your own reflection in those ripples, distorted and fleeting, but still present. You finish wringing the water from your clothes, pressing the fabric into neat folds. The motion is careful, almost ceremonial. It marks the passage of effort and the reclaiming of space, not freedom, not triumph, but a claim of quiet dignity. You gather your bundles, tucking the cloths close as though they contain some essential piece of yourself. The river's surface is calm now, disturbed only by the occasional ripple of wind or the passing of a small bird. You stand for a moment, feeling the cool air against your wet hands, the gentle ache in your shoulders, and the lingering taste of grey water on your skin. The day continues around you, yet you exist slightly apart from it, tethered to motion, to reflection, to the simple assertion of care for yourself and what you wear. You begin the walk back toward the streets. Each step feels measured, deliberate. The world outside the riverbank is unchanged. Smoke, stone, the faint, distant clatter of a cart. But inside you, there is a small shift, subtle and almost imperceptible, a memory of stillness, of water flowing, of effort not measured in coins or overseers' ledger marks, but in the slow reclamation of something private, almost sacred. And though your body no longer remembers rest, though the mill will reclaim it soon enough, for this small moment, you carry the sense of choice, a rhythm of your own making, however faint, lingering just beneath the ache and dust. You arrive at the mill on Monday morning with the habitual weight of yesterday still clinging to your shoulders. The scent of oil, cotton dust, and damp wool greets you before you even pass through the doorway. The air is thicker than it should be, and the light through the high windows is muted, dimmed by layers of grime and the lingering fog from the river. It is the same as it ever was, and yet today you notice a faint undercurrent, almost imperceptible, as though the mill itself has begun to breathe differently. There are whispers, small and tentative, floating along the aisles. You hear them first as fragments, words snatched from the air. Inspectors, shorter hours, laws. They drift past your ears like smoke curling through a crack in the wall, and then they vanish before you can grasp them fully. You strain to catch more, leaning slightly toward the voices, but they are careful, deliberate, wary. Even the faintest sound of authority makes them recoil into silence. The overseer is present as always, his figure a constant shadow over the room. He moves slowly, his hands folded behind his back, the small ledger under one arm. His eyes sweep the floor with methodical care, noting each motion, each gesture. He does not acknowledge the whispers. The murmurs rise and fall around him, yet he remains untouched, immovable. Perhaps he senses the slight tremor of change in the air, or perhaps he does not care. You pause at your station, letting the threads slide through your fingers as your mind turns over the words. Inspectors, laws, shorter hours. They are not promises, merely suggestions of a world beyond this one. A world that might interfere with the rhythms you have come to obey. You feel the faint ache of longing for it, tempered by the doubt that such change could reach even this corner of the mill, where the air is thick with cotton fibres and the days are measured in hours of repetition. A girl near the spinning frames whispers to a boy beside her, careful to keep their voices low. You catch the edges of their conversation, words about government men coming, about rules that might keep them from working so many hours, about wages that could be calculated with fairness. Their eyes flicker to the overseer, and you notice the small tension in their shoulders, the way their hands hesitate mid-motion before returning to their tasks. You imagine what it would mean, even for a moment, to move without the strict schedule of the mill dictating every second, to breathe air that has not been thickened by cotton and coal, to rest your arms and not feel the ache of repetition in every joint. The thought is a delicate thing, fragile and almost laughable in its impossibility, yet it lingers in the corners of your mind, a faint ember refusing to extinguish. You count the spools and threads, just as you always do, but your fingers linger a little longer, catching the way the fibres shimmer under the light. The rhythm of your work continues, obedient as ever, but your thoughts wander. Perhaps you think the whispers will grow. Perhaps the inspectors will arrive and look closely. Take note of the children, the broken hands, the lungs still coated in fine white dust. Perhaps something will shift, even slightly, and the mill will not feel so absolute. A shadow passes near the doorway. You glance up. It is a small man in a plain coat, carrying a leather-bound book and a bundle of papers. His gaze flicks over the room, taking in the machinery, the children, the adults, the very air itself. He does not speak to you, and yet the presence of him bends the atmosphere, a quiet gravity settling over the mill. The whispers rise briefly, brushing the edges of your awareness, and then dissolve, cautious, wary, uncertain. You resume work, moving as the threads demand. The hum of the machines is familiar, comforting almost, a constant that masks the tension in the room. Yet even as you immerse yourself in the rhythm, the words of reform cling to the edges of your mind. Inspectors, laws, shorter hours. They are not here yet, not fully, but they are approaching like faint winds before a storm, an inevitability that is both terrifying and enticing. Your hands ache with familiarity. The muscles in your back and shoulders protest quietly, a low, persistent reminder of labour endured. The children around you move with practiced ease, their bodies bent to the frames, their hands swift and precise. They have not yet learned the full measure of what whispers mean, but perhaps, in time, they will. Perhaps change will reach them before it reaches you. You notice the overseer's shadow passing again, longer now in the fading light. He does not pause, he does not question. He carries the air of a man who knows the machinery of both the mill and the world outside, yet chooses to acknowledge neither. You return to your task, but the quiet tension is inescapable. There is a shift, however slight, that cannot be ignored. The bell clangs for a brief break, and workers shuffle to the edges of the room. Conversations begin again, careful and low. There is talk of hours being counted differently, of laws being proposed in distant rooms of government buildings. You listen, almost without breath, letting the possibility slip like water through your fingers. Belief feels expensive. To hope is to risk disappointment, to measure desire against the constant machinery of the mill, which has already claimed so much. You step aside to gather your thread spools, watching as the children pause in their work. They glance at the whispered stories, their small bodies tense, unsure. There is a faint spark in their eyes, a tiny flicker of wonder at the notion that something could interfere with the inevitability of the mill. It is fragile, easily snuffed by the overseer's glance or a shift in routine, yet it exists. The water in the trough reflects a thin line of light, caught from the windows above. You think of the Saturday wash, of hands immersed in grey water, of soap bubbles rising and fading like tiny illusions. The past and present blend together, and you realise that the whisper of reform is another kind of water, delicate, evasive, yet capable of shaping even the hardest surfaces over time. Machines hum once more as the workers return to their stations. You follow, moving in the rhythm that has become second nature. The whispers persist, tucked into corners, brushing against the edges of your mind. The words are faint, fragile, but they are present. Inspectors, laws, shorter hours, they do not touch the machinery, do not slow the spools, do not bend the overseer's watchful eyes. Yet they are a beginning, a slight shift in the atmosphere, a promise that the world outside these walls still exists. You glance at the children working beside you. They are swift, efficient, precise. The rhythm of the mill is etched into them as deeply as it is in you. But you notice their eyes flick toward the windows, more frequently, toward the source of rumours, toward the vague notion that there may be something beyond repetition, beyond dust, beyond the endless echo of thread and pulley. Perhaps they sense what you have only begun to consider, that even the smallest currents of change can stir the heaviest waters. The day continues, heavy and measured. You follow the motions of your hands, threading and spinning, the rhythm of your body matching the pulse of the looms. Yet the whispers never vanish entirely, lurking like smoke along the rafters, brushing against the backs of your neck. They are a quiet presence, persistent, patient, reminding you that the world is wider than the mill, slower than the overseer, and perhaps in ways not yet known, more merciful than you had allowed yourself to believe. By the time the bell rings, signalling the end of the shift, the whispers have grown slightly louder, more certain. The overseer rises, his shadow long in the fading light, and moves toward the office. The children gather their bundles with practiced care, still tense, still alert. You tuck your apron close and step into the corridor, feeling the subtle change in the air. Outside, the sky's bruised and soft, the street wet with recent rain. The smell of coal mixes with fresh earth, a strange promise of renewal in the midst of grime. You walk slowly, letting your thoughts drift alongside the whispers. Inspectors, laws, shorter hours. They are not reality yet, only possibility, but even possibility carries weight. You pause for a moment in the doorway of the mill, letting the last light fall on your hands, on the children, on the machines. They will return tomorrow, the rhythm unchanged. But perhaps, quietly, something has shifted. Perhaps the whispers, like water, have found a crack in the walls. And as you step into the evening, the murmur of distant streets and the faint, hopeful rustle of leaves carries you forward. The mill is patient. The overseer is steady. The machines will continue. And somewhere in the threads, in the dust, in the rhythm of repeated motion, the whisper of reform lingers, fragile, uncertain, and yet undeniably present. The bell has fallen silent, leaving only the faint echo of its memory vibrating through the walls. The mill, emptied of bodies and purpose for the night, exhales a slow mechanical sigh. Dust hangs in the air, suspended like tiny motes of forgotten time, drifting lazily in the weak glow that filters through the high windows. You pause at the threshold, letting the stillness seep into your bones, The hum, the clatter, the endless turning of wheels, all of it has ceased, leaving a silence almost too sharp to bear. You step outside, blinking against the dim light of dusk. The sky is a muted wash of grey and violet, the faint traces of a sun long gone hiding behind the clouds. There is a softness here, a fragile calm, but it carries the weight of everything that is past. The town itself breathes quietly, settling after another day measured in lint, thread, and exhaustion. Smoke rises in thin spirals from chimneys, curling into the sky and fading before it reaches the stars. They seem smaller tonight, as if pressed by the relentless routine of the day, distant and indifferent. The street is slick with rain from earlier, the cobblestones reflecting the feeble light of lanterns. You walk slowly, feeling the uneven stones under your worn boots, each step deliberate and mindful. The air smells of oil, of coal, and faintly of bread from ovens long extinguished. It is a sense you know as intimately as your own pulse, and yet it carries a strange comfort. The reminder that life continues even in exhaustion, even in monotony. Children pass by, their small feet silent against the damp stones. Some run home, laughing faintly, their voices cautious and careful. Others linger at the edges, curious or restless, glimpsing the shadowed figures of adults who have just emerged from the mill. You watch them, noting the contrast between their freedom and the weight you carry, and feel a quiet ache settle in your chest. The town is alive, but only in brief, delicate movements, as if each soul conserves energy for the inevitable return to labour. You breathe deeply, the evening air cool and slightly damp, brushing against your face and hands. Your lungs remember fresh air differently now, untainted by fibres and dust, and the sensation is almost startling in its simplicity. You exhale slowly, letting the rhythm of your breath match the calm of the night, each inhale and release a small assertion of presence in a world that often forgets you. The mill looms behind you, dark and still, its windows reflecting the faint light of the street lamps. Its shadow stretches long and soft across the cobblestones, a silent reminder of the day's demands. Inside, the machines rest, their gears cooled, their pulleys quiet. Yet you know that tomorrow they will awaken, unrelenting, calling bodies and minds back into their precise rhythm. For now, however, they are dormant, and you allow yourself to linger in the rare grace of absence. A dog stirs in a doorway, sniffing at the night air, before settling back down. The sound of dripping water echoes faintly somewhere nearby, irregular and slow. You follow its rhythm unconsciously, matching your steps to its uneven pulse. The street feels vast in the absence of human traffic, each movement amplified by silence. The town exhales with you, carrying away the residue of the day, sweat, dust, and the faint scent of laboured air. You pass a small market stall, abandoned and shuttered. The wooden boards are slick with damp, and the faint smell of rotting fruit drifts faintly. The smell is pungent but harmless at this hour, an unfamiliar facet of existence beyond the mill. You pause, letting your fingers brush against the rough wood, noting its grooves and imperfections. The touch is grounding, a reminder that the world contains textures and sensations untouched by cotton or oil. The evening continues to deepen. Faint lights flicker in the windows of distant houses, their occupants settling into whatever routines mark the end of a day outside the mill. You watch shadows lengthen across the street, stretching thin and pale, merging with the darker forms of doorways and walls. There is a kind of quiet symmetry here, a gentle ordering of movement and stillness that mirrors, in softer tones, the rhythm you have followed all day. Somewhere faintly, a bell tolls, not from the mill, but from the distant church. Its sound is slow, deliberate, resonant, a gentle counterpoint to the absence of machinery. You listen for a moment, allowing its tone to fill the space between your thoughts, bridging the day and night, labor and rest, fatigue and calm. It is a sound that exists outside of routine, one that marks time without claiming it, a small mercy in the sweep of hours and toil. You draw a breath and notice the chill settling into your shoulders. Your coat is damp with the evening dew, clinging faintly to the fabric of your shirt and skin. You shrug, almost imperceptibly, adjusting your posture against the cold. The sensation is familiar, yet it reminds you of your body in a way the mill rarely allows. Muscles ache and flex, ribs expand and contract, and for a moment you are conscious of each motion, without the machinery demanding it. A pair of children appear down the street, their small voices tentative, carrying questions and fragments of stories. They glance at you, and then at each other, unsure whether to speak aloud. You smile faintly, a gesture small enough to avoid attention, but warm enough to acknowledge shared humanity. The night air carries their words, fragile and fleeting, into the empty spaces of the town, into the corners where shadows linger. You pause again near the riverbank, watching as the water glints faintly under the waning light. It is slower than the work you have left behind, moving in currents you cannot control, shaped by gravity and landscape rather than human labour. The surface ripples lightly, reflecting the last embers of sun and the first hints of stars. You let the stillness settle into your chest, the quiet pulse of the river echoing in your bones. The stars above are small and distant, scattered thinly across the sky. You notice them now, more than you have in weeks, their light faint yet persistent. Each one seems almost delicate, fragile against the vast dark, yet somehow enduring. You imagine them witnessing every day that passes in the mill, every whispered conversation, every hand pressed to a spool, every child's fingers learning the rhythm of the world too soon. A faint wind brushes through the street, carrying with it the mixed scents of earth, coal and bread. You inhale slowly, letting the combination settle in your chest and throat. It is not the scent of freedom, nor of comfort, but it is different. A subtle reminder that life extends beyond work, that air and time and sensation exist outside of the rigid pulse of machinery. You continue walking, each step measured, deliberate. Your shadow stretches behind you, merging with those of buildings and lampposts. You notice the curves of the streets, the angles of walls, the uneven stones beneath your boots. Each detail, small and easily overlooked during daylight hours, asserts itself in the muted clarity of evening. The world feels larger now, broader and slightly more forgiving, even if only for the duration of a walk. Eventually, you reach your home. The door creaks softly as you push it open, the familiar scent of damp wood and oil mixing with something gentler, almost domestic. You set your coat and apron aside, peeling off the day's dust with small, deliberate motions. The coins from your envelope feel heavier in your pocket than the fabric you remove. A tangible reminder of labour endured and the week that has passed. You settle near a window, letting your gaze wander over the town below. Smoke rises in soft plumes, dissipating into the night, and the faint glow of lamps punctuates the darkened streets. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then silence returns. You breathe in the evening air, cool and slightly damp, carrying the faint smell of soot, bread, and wet earth. For a moment, you simply exist in it. No machines, no overseer, no spools and threads, only the quiet night and the rhythm of your own body. Your hands rest in your lap. Your lungs expand and contract slowly. The stars are still small, distant, yet they are present. The night holds you gently, a fragile promise of rest, however temporary, before the machines call again. And so you sit listening to the silence, feeling the residual pulse of the day's labour in your muscles and bones. The evening air, heavy yet soft, brushes against your skin and hair, carrying the faint whisper of something beyond the mill, beyond the work, beyond the endless repetition. You let it wash over you, slow and deliberate, carrying the quiet knowledge that even in exhaustion, there are moments of grace, however fleeting. Night arrives slowly, not with suddenness, but with the deliberate, patient pull of shadow across the streets. The lamps in the distance flicker weakly, their light half swallowed by the evening mist. You lie on the narrow cot in your small room, the coarse blankets pulled up to your chest, and feel the day's weight folding over you. It has been carried in your muscles, your lungs, in the dust that still clings faintly to your hair and skin. Now it seeps into your dreams. You close your eyes and the world of the mill begins to dissolve. The spools, the pulleys, the relentless rhythm of the looms, all fade into the softness of imagined air. For a moment, the scent of cotton is gone, replaced by the faint sweetness of grass and earth. You are standing in a field, the sun warm but not harsh, stretching over your shoulders like a gentle hand. The grass bends beneath your feet, soft and yielding, and the wind carries nothing but itself. No dust, no smoke, no sweat of labour. The field is endless, open and quiet except for the sound of your own breathing. The blades of grass whisper against each other in patterns you can almost read, as though each movement holds a message for the attentive. You kneel and let your hands brush across the green, feeling it yield without resistance, without weariness. Your fingers sink into the soil, cool and moist, a sensation that is both foreign and intoxicating. You remember that feeling once in fleeting glimpses before the mill claimed your days. A small brook winds lazily through the field. You follow it with your eyes, fascinated by the way the water curves and ripples around stones, never hurried, never dictated by the pulse of spindles. You cup a handful of it and let it slip slowly through your fingers, smooth and clear. The taste is pure, cool and fleeting, a reminder of a world that has no overseer, no clock, no thread pulling endlessly through tiny hands. You hear voices in the distance, faint but full of warmth. Perhaps it is the laughter of children, or the voices of neighbours, or merely echoes of memory. You move toward them slowly, savouring each step, and the grass bends beneath your boots without complaint. The sound grows, layering with the gentle rustle of leaves and the babble of water, until it becomes almost a song, fragile and tentative, meant for you alone. Time behaves differently here. There are no hours to count, no shifts to endure. The sun arcs lazily across the sky, touching your shoulders, your hands, the tips of the tall grass. Shadows stretch and contract, but they do so with a languid patience, not an insistence that you move or labour. You breathe fully, letting your chest expand, feeling the slow pulse of life itself, rather than the artificial rhythm imposed by machinery. You sit by the brook and dip your fingers into the water again. The coolness seeps into your skin, carrying away some of the weight you have borne for years. You watch as tiny fish move beneath the surface, indifferent to your presence, living in a rhythm all their own. It is a quiet lesson in endurance, in small necessary motions, and you feel a subtle resonance with the way your hands have worked the spools all your life. The difference is that here, there is choice. Here, the labour belongs to no one but yourself. The field stretches farther than you can see, rolling gently toward horizons you cannot measure. Flowers bloom in scattered clusters, wild and untamed. Their colours are muted in the dreamlight, yet they offer an almost imperceptible joy, something bright and ephemeral in contrast to the constant grey of the mill. You bend to touch one, letting its soft petals brush against your palm. A faint scent rises, floral and clean, carrying with it a whisper of freedom. A breeze rises, brushing your hair across your face. It is gentle, yet insistent, reminding you of air unburdened by soot and fibres. You close your eyes, feeling it on your skin, imagining it in your lungs. And for the first time in days, perhaps weeks, you sense a kind of rest that is not forced, not broken by the rhythm of spindles. Your mind, usually occupied with the constant calculations of time and labour, floats freely. The voices grow nearer, though they remain distant enough to be shapes rather than people. They speak softly, words indistinct but comforting. You follow their sound, walking along the brook, feeling the cool mud press lightly against your boots. Every step is deliberate but unhurried. There is no overseer watching, no ledger noting the hours, no small coins to measure your effort. The only weight is your own presence, light and unclaimed. Yet inevitably, the edges of the dream begin to fray. The hum of machinery creeps in, faint at first, as if the field itself cannot resist the pull of the world you have inhabited for so long. You hear the faint tick of a clock, the subtle creak of wood, the echo of spools spinning. The grass beneath your boots seems to grow firmer, less yielding, and the brook slows, thickening into a stream more familiar than you wish it to be. You look up, and the sky, once vast and open, folds slowly inward. The stars shrink, and a thin haze descends over the field. You realise with a gentle, inevitable sigh that the dream cannot last. It bends toward the rhythm you know, the reality of returning to rooms thick with dust, of spools spinning without pause, of hands aching and lungs thick with fibres. The openness narrows, and the freedom you held in your chest softens into memory. Still, even as the edges of the dream fold into the hum of machinery, you carry fragments with you. The taste of cool water, the softness of grass beneath your fingers, the sound of voices unpressured by necessity. These are tiny victories, small defiance against the relentlessness of the mill. You let them linger in your mind as your body begins to surrender to sleep, allowing the sensation to seep into the ache, the fatigue, the very rhythm of your chest. The loom's hum grows, steady and eternal, and you know it will continue beyond this night, beyond the span of dreams. Yet within that continuity, the memory of fields and water and soft sunlight remains, faint but persistent. It is a quiet rebellion, unrecorded in ledgers or wages, invisible to the overseer, yet deeply, indelibly yours. You sigh a long, drawn-out sound that carries more than exhaustion. It carries the acknowledgement of the dream's impermanence, of the inevitability of returning to the mill. Yet it is also a whisper of what could exist beyond these walls. You feel your body sink deeper into the bed, muscles relaxing even as your mind lingers on green grass, cool water, and the open sky. Outside your small window, the town sleeps. Chimneys exhale faint smoke into the night. Lanterns wink their tired light along the streets. And somewhere distant, a bell tolls slowly, marking the passage of hours without urgency. You let the sound fold around you, letting it match the rhythm of your heartbeat, letting it carry you further into the fragile sanctuary of sleep. The final fragments of the dream persist as you drift, the field shrinking gently into memory, the brook narrowing into a whisper. You move through it lightly, touching petals, dipping fingers into water, walking alongside voices that will fade, all without resistance. The world of labour is patient, it waits. But for now, in the delicate suspension between wakefulness and sleep, you exist in a liminal space where freedom is possible, even if only fleeting. And then the loom's hum, ever present, folds fully into the background. The dream ends, as it always does. You are back beneath the spools, the threads, the unceasing machinery. Yet sleep has claimed you, and with it comes a soft relief, a quiet reclamation of something lost but remembered, A reminder that even in repetition, even in labour, even under the shadow of relentless spindles, the mind can wander and the body can rest. Your eyes are closed, your chest rises and falls. The mill is patient, time is unchanging, but you exist here, in this soft, suspended moment. Caught between reality and dream, between labour and longing, between what is and what might be. The hum becomes a lullaby, steady and eternal, and as you sigh, the night swallows the sound, carrying you gently into sleep, leaving only the faint echo of fields, water, and freedom lingering at the edges of your mind. The wind outside settled into silence. The candle's final thread of flame trembled, then slipped away, leaving only the scent of oil, dust, and faintly scorched fabric lingering in the air. The faint reminder of a life spent beneath the hum of spinning machines. Somewhere beyond the dark, dawn waited, and though the world would wake to new laws, new machines, and new ways of working, a small part of those mill hands would remain. Not in textbooks or monuments, but in every quiet hand that moves with care, in every weary body that knows the rhythm of labour. Their toil had faded, yes, but not gone. It had simply changed shape, finding new homes in safer workshops, steadier lives, and slower, more deliberate days. The story of labour was still being written. 1 hour, one thread, one weary sigh at a time. And that brings us to the end of tonight's story. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment with another forgotten corner of history you'd like explored next. If you'd like early access to more of these quiet descents into forgotten history, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. If you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps more people find their way to these stories. And special thanks to the supporters who make this show possible, including our chroniclers Andrew S. and Rich Davis. Sleep well.